Lead characters are what keep us watching. They take matters into their own hands to drive the plot forward. Together with them, we laugh, we cry, and ultimately, we grow together. Here are your nominees for Best Lead Character.
会いたかったよあっくそして嘘つきのヤモリくん
そのためだ
非常に貴重とされる牛の胆石夢にまで見た飛躍が今
えらいこっちゃえらいこっちゃえらいこっちゃえらいこっちゃこの場がえらいこっちゃこの場がえらいこっちゃ今年の祭りのミスコン舞台でカリスマホストが蘇る全校生
追いつけない正解天才この英語は何と読むでしょう
はい知らね
正解はデカケツです
えエロ女
俺に嫌がらせでしたっけできました
よかったな
新規の花火が追加
頭燃えてますよ
どちらにせよ光はもうおらんのやそれやったら偽物でもそう
And your jury winner for Best Lead Character is Yoshiki Tsuchinaka from Hikaru. And the public winner for Best Lead Character is Mao Mao from The Apothecary Diaries Season 2.
I love to see some Hikaru representation. Hikaru hasn't done exactly so well in some of the other categories, but you know, I think Yoshiki is an amazing lead character and really pulls the series forward. What do you think came into recognizing him as best lead character, Ember?
There's a lot of trauma going on with Tsuchinaka in this series, revolving his relationship around Hikaru and now the entity that is posing as Hikaru, and just sort of the meshing of the so many conflicting emotions that he has regarding letting go of Hikaru and trying to replace him, but also realizing that he can't replace him, but still wanting to, and it's just this incredibly it's a lose-lose situation all around, and it's just watching him deal with that was incredibly endearing and also very stressful.
Part of what I love about Tsuchinaka's performance here and his characterization is that on some level you get the hint that he knows this is wrong. He understands that befriending this weird thing that looks like his friend, and he has some kind of weird like harboring of feelings towards it, but he understands that it's not his friend. It makes for some interesting and climactic character watching.
Right.
Was that what the jury was thinking about when they chose Yoshiki Mage?
Yeah, most of it just came down to how compelling the inner conflict was of Yoshiki, and sort of seeing that transition over the course of the show in particular was definitely very interesting to us.
And then on the other side, you got Mao Mao. And, you know, who else could have won for the public, really, right? Like, I know Reze is a fan favorite. I know a lot of these are fan favorites, but I think Mao Mao just has the complete package, right? She is a great dramatic character, but she is also, like, funny as hell. Let's speak about why we love Mao Mao so much.
I mean, how could you not love Mao Mao? But, I mean, it's sort of everything. Like, what on the more technical end with Aoyuki delivering just another absolutely incredible performance, capturing all the different emotions that come with her, and just the sheer wittiness and ability to wiggle her way out of a situation, either serious or comedic, and just the web of connections that she makes throughout this season as the really dark parts of the rear palace come into full view, and having to deal with the fallout of all of that, and struggling with trying to keep everyone on board, I guess, for lack of a better term, through this massive conflict that erupts in it.
It's so funny because I think when you're kind of judging what it means to be a good lead character, I think a lot of people kind of jump to this idea of there's like a static and dynamic character dynamic, right? So either you have a character who doesn't really grow, or a character who undergoes this kind of dramatic arc and changes by the end of it. And Mao Mao is interesting in that I don't think she really does change, right? She gets challenged in different ways and she's forced to kind of reconcile different things. But at the end of the day, she is still the same old Mao Mao we started with from episode 1. Would you both agree with that characterization, or am I wrong here?
I don't think the core of her character changes. I think she is still recognizably Mao Mao at the end of all of this. But I do think maybe there is a little bit, just a tinge more, what's the word I'm looking for? So I'm trying not to spoil the very last episode, but like, there's a little bit more heaviness behind her, if that makes any sense. Just a little bit more like there are weighty things that I'm going to have to deal with, I guess. Does that make any sense?
I think that does make sense. I think this is not someone who... This is the way I would summarize it, is that before, Mao Mao seemed to be completely content with just gathering herbs and doing her own thing, right? But now she's kind of wrapped up in this whole overarching political drama, and she feels that she has a duty to do things to further that cause.
Yeah.
You know, a little earlier we were talking about Apocalypse Hotel and the fact that you hadn't finished it. I just want to get what your thoughts on Yachio are and exactly why you haven't continued.
It wasn't Yachio, I can say that much. I really appreciated her as a character, and just how Yachio is just sort of able to manage all of the wacky things going on at this hotel, both from a comedic sense or from like a more character-centric or emotional sense, or even like an action-centric sense with that. I think that was episode 4, I think, or something. But as for why I didn't continue it, it was the Tanukis. They were a little too grating for my personal taste. But I do appreciate Yachio for being able to hold it together.
Mage, what were some considerations when we were talking about Yachio? And did the Tanukis come up at all?
It honestly came up mostly as a positive, but in general, I think the big thing with Yachio in particular is, despite being a robot, seeing the way in which she grew, especially over the time when you compare at the very end of the show how she was at the beginning. The amount of character growth that Yachio goes through is, really enormous, and kind of all the different stages throughout, and seeing her little achievements going off. It all sort of was blended very well with all the comedic elements of the show, as well as a sort of build-up of that character.
I'm kind of interested in what both of you think makes a good lead character. How do you evaluate? Because character categories are always some of the hardest to juror for because of the sheer number of them, right? So if you're in the slice of life jury, maximum there's 20 to 30 shows, and then only 10 to 15 of them are worth being nominated, right? But with characters, you have hundreds, if not maybe 1,000. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm being crazy, but what goes into making a good character?
I think the unfortunate answer is it's very situational. It's based on genre, could be based on the setting, and what kind of character would best fit that scenario. But I think maybe just for me personally is how best does a character manifest the central themes of the series, I guess, and how do they tackle that, which I guess Tsuchinaka would actually be a pretty solid example of that, in how he's manifesting this incredible darkness at the heart of all of this that he has to navigate while also trying to stay emotionally sane himself.
Mage, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you want to do a quick little lightning round? How do some of these characters that are being nominated here and being celebrated do what Ember said, embody the themes of the show and push it forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think the call for Yoshiki in particular definitely aligns very well with the themes of the show. I think there's a lot of the characters here that do align. I do also think that a part of it is as you had referenced earlier about the difference between static and dynamic characters, and I think that kind of applies to sort of like a character's agency or ability to sort of drive how the show progresses. And I think that was also a big factor in a number of these characters. Like if they were a less dynamic character, they had less of a role in the story, how would that sort of change how the story would play out? How much of an impact did they have in general? That was also a consideration we had for a lot of them.
I didn't really think about that. The idea of that, you know, if this show didn't have like Rintaro in it or Marin in it, how would that change things, and would it change it for the worse or the better? And I think that's a really great way to look at it. Which kind of irks me that you've put Oguri Cap last. Oguri Cap she is the show. What's wrong with you?
I mean, in our defense, like especially in the second core in particular of Cinderella Grey, Oguri Cap definitely takes a much more of a backseat compared to say Tamamo Cross or even some of the international racers that come by. And one of the things that we noted was that while Oguri Cap really has a strong drive in racing, outside of being on the track itself, it felt like she really didn't have a lot of that same agency or urgency towards really wanting to race. Like there was just it's one thing for character to say that they really want to be competitive, but then actually carrying that through on their day-to-day actions, there was a little bit of a mismatch there. Don't get me wrong, though. Oguri Kappa was a great character overall, but those little things definitely kind of put her down slightly.
And I mean, you know, she has a lot of good competition to be going up against, so I understand your rationale. You know, so if any of y'all want to take a look at these characters, there's so many more that we missed out on, but I think any of these shows is a good watch. And I hope y'all keep watching the stream.